Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to wait just a bit as people are joining. Sorry, we had a little problem with our clock this morning, and I was not able to give you a little bit of a warning clock. So it's 12 o'clock. It's a Wednesday, and that means it's time for Wednesdays with Wayne. And as I see the counter continuing to go up, we will give it a little bit for the people to load in. Guys, today, we are going to talk about what, quite honestly, I believe is the most important issue in not only real estate sales, but in small business in general, in every industry. And I'll try to show you why today. Those of you that have not been following along on the latest activities in the real estate business, before we get into the importance of past client systems, if you haven't been watching the news, if you've been a member of Wednesdays with Wayne for a while, we have mentioned these things before. 2 class action lawsuits, basically revolving around buyer agency agreements. 2 weeks ago, Anywhere, which is the parent company of Coldwell Banker, Century 21, ERA, and a couple of other brands, went to the court and agreed to a settlement of $83.5 million in the pursuit of these lawsuits that are out there. And again, if you're not familiar, I will tell you need to become familiar, so I'll try to help you out. If you're not familiar with that, it deals with buyer agency commissions. It deals with a premise or a concept, a theory that says it's unfair for a seller to be paying a fee to a buyer's agent, therefore paying in the lawsuit, they claim paying an inflated commission. So that happened 2 weeks ago. This week on Monday, RE/MAX made the same move as Anywhere and agreed to a $55 million settlement. Now, what does that have to do with past client systems? Well, what it has to do with is simply this. You've got to get in touch with your guys. Those lawsuits are based on transactional situations. There's a movement out there with the third parties, and I've mentioned this to y'all before, that want this to become very transactional. As an individual agent in the field, you do not want it to become transactional. You want this business to stay relational, but we have got to, and I will probably have way more voice inflection today than you've ever heard me have. This is such a huge issue for me. It is the sleeping dog. It is however you want to put it. I'm going to implore you today in the fourth quarter to please put protocols and have strategies in place to once and for all get back in touch with your past clients. I know you haven't had to in the past if you're an experienced agent. You haven't had to crush the past client play. Guys, I'm here to tell you, it is the biggest issue in real estate. And I'll lay out some analogies for you from other industries today that maybe will make this make some sense to you. So with that opening, let's just jump in because I've got a lot of content for you today. So you've seen this quote from me a lot, right? Because it's one of my favorites. Most people go through their life and they never get leverage, and that's sad. But what's worse is when you have leverage and you don't use it. Well, the premise of today is you guys are here. You're in the business. I think you have a bulletproof leverage point. But what I know from traveling across the country and talking to real estate agents, top performing real estate agents, we're really not leveraging this bulletproof thing that we have the way we should be. And I want to go down this road with you today to show you how to do it and the pieces that it takes in order to have an unbelievable past client system. So the question I want to ask all you guys today is pretty simply this: how you doing? Now, in the context of how are you doing, here's what I want you to try to understand and the things I want you to look at. And I'm going to ask you the questions that I think you need to be asking yourself. So number one, what are the closed transaction numbers for your market? You need to know that, all right? And then what percentage are they off for this year versus other years? On average, I think you're going to find a number around 16 to 18% in most markets. So there are fewer transactions being done. All right. Now, I also want you to calculate, what are your transaction numbers? Are you up from the previous 3 years, let's say? Are you doing more transactions now in a down market? Or are you even with the market? The market's off 15% and I'm off 15%. Or are you doing, for lack of a better term, worse than the market? The market's off 15%, I'm off 30%. You need to know those numbers, guys. Please do that math. I'm not asking you to do it right now, but don't have this be a session that you've watched and then you're like, oh, that was nice, and then we don't do any action steps around this. You need to know your percentage as a relationship of the market. Now, here we go. Are you outperforming the market? If so, kudos to you. Way to go. But analyze what you're doing and leverage the activities. Dig deeper into those activities that are allowing you to outperform the marketplace. Number two, are you running even with the market? Again, way to go. You can never control a market. You can only control your activities within that market. So analyze where your deals have come from so far, and maybe look at adding in one of the other activities that we're going to talk about today. Now I want to talk to, if you're not in the first two categories, I want to talk very seriously to the other group of you. If you're off more than the market, what have you stopped doing that you used to do? Okay? Because you've got to get back to that. And you've got to get back to that at a higher level than you used to do it. Okay? Because I know this is out there because I've seen the stats on some agents within offices. The market's off 20% and agents might be off 60, 70%. If you're doing, and if you would look at me and say, well, Wayne, I don't understand why I'm off. I'm doing exactly what I've always done. But you're off more than the market. I don't like telling you what I'm about to tell you, but I have to tell you this. What you have always done isn't good enough anymore. And I'll tell you why it's not. I'll try to show you why it's not. All right? This marketplace is hitting more seasoned people than it is new people to the industry, quite honestly. You have to upgrade what you're doing, guys. You have to upgrade what you're doing. I've said this to you repeatedly over the last few years. The third parties are counting and banking on the fact that you won't. They want this to become transactional. They want this to be an online play. It is playing out in real time, and I'll show you statistically why I know this to be true. While today's marketplace is challenging, guys, the storm really hasn't hit yet. But it's been getting cloudier and cloudier for a really long time. This is not something that has happened in the last, 18 months, as we've seen listing inventories drop and we've seen sales prices go up. There's a bigger narrative here, and I'm going to prove it to you. This is a presentation, pieces of a presentation that I presented to my office when I owned RE/MAX House of Brokers in 2004, 20 years ago, be almost 20 years ago. And it was where I felt the business was headed in 2005 and beyond. Now, tell me if some of this stuff rings true, because these are the original PowerPoint slides from almost 20 years ago. We had a gentleman in our office, and those of you that are on here today, they're in Springfield, you know this man. His name was Raleigh Langston. And I will say to this day, Raleigh Langston had a better handle than on the real estate industry itself than probably 95% of the agents. And he made this comment to me. He said, the public is tired of underwriting the cost of an ineffective and inefficient services delivery model. And he said this in the early 2000s. Well, he was correct. And so here's what I said to our agents back then. I feel like we're being marginalized and repositioned. We've lost our selling proposition to the public, and that's information. Now, Zillow didn't really become a player for 3 years after this. The public expects more today from us than they ever have. Our independence has turned into a detriment. And 24 to 36 months from now, I said this 20 years ago, there'll be two types of agents and companies, great and cheap. Now, I said the tweeners, those agents that are caught in the middle and don't really have a business model, they'll have to make a choice. And by the time they realize they have to make a choice, it'll be too late and they'll all go cheap. And I felt like at the time this created a great opportunity for us. I missed it by 19 years, guys. It took 19 years for this to all play out. And I don't mean to be Mr. Doom and Gloom, because I'm not. I'm basically a pretty positive guy. But you got to do the work because it's here. The things that we saw on the horizon took 19 years to get here. And a lot of people now are saying, well, I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for rates to drop, or I'm waiting for the inventory numbers to come back. And my message to you today is stop waiting. Please stop waiting. Stop waiting, because this market requires you to think and act strategically, not wait for the marketplace. Don't wait for the marketplace to move. You move. Today's market forces are definitely going to thin the herd. A vast majority of the agents that are joining this industry are ill-equipped to deal with what is going on, okay? But having said that, we had 1,528,000 real estate agents at the end of February 2023. At the end of last month, we had 1,573,000 agents, up almost 50,000 agents nationally. So while there are people leaving, there are just as many people coming into our industry. This is a fact that has always happened in our industry. And it drives home, or it creates this scenario why you have to have such a vibrant past client system. Here's the thing, consumer behavior's changed. And as a result, the game that we play has to change. We can't keep doing things the way that we did them. Wayne Gretzky said, I skate to where the puck's going to be, not where it's been. Well, that's where we are. I want to try to show you in 2023, I'm going to get my crystal ball out and tell you this is where I think we're going, because it's already happening. I'm already watching it happen in markets. Biggest change in the last 5 years is that while real estate sales is still local, what is now starting to drive a consumer is no longer local. Okay? It's no longer local. Absent a vibrant past client sphere of influence plan, consumers are now going online to find real estate agents. I have some clients that are crushing this opportunity right now, and they are gobbling up business from other realtors who did probably a very nice job for the people, but they didn't stay in touch with them. And therefore, the people that have the nice online plays, okay, are able to get in there and do the business, and they're good at what they do. So the reality of all this is, it's hitting real estate now, and I do have solutions for you if you'll do them. It's hitting real estate now, but we're very late to this. Okay, consider this. Travel agents. Remember when travel agents got hit with this first because of Travelocity, now Orbitz and Kayak. Very few people go to a travel agent anymore. They go to the online portals. And yet, the real estate industry stayed right where it was. Insurance agents. Well, they've had to battle Geico and Progressive, right? And all of the ad campaigns of those companies. Lawyers have had to battle LegalZoom. A lot of us use LegalZoom now for the simple contract work that we might want to do. Stockbrokers, they were early to it too. Charles Schwab, E-Trade, Robinhood, a whole litany of online trades. The big box retailer's been hit with this because of Amazon. Now, I want you to think about specifically your insurance agent for a second. Can you name your insurance agent? Your property and casualty agent? I hope that you can, but I imagine there's a lot of people that can't. Or you can probably name the company you're with in a lot of cases, but you can't name your agent, because this is not a real estate issue. This is a small business issue. And what we always know is if you sit there right now and you can't name who your property and casualty agent is, what I know is you're not referring them any business in your real estate transactions. Or even if you can name who they are, if you haven't been hearing from them a lot and they haven't been deepening that relationship with you, you're probably not trying to refer your buyers to that insurance agent. You probably would go to LegalZoom rather than calling an attorney, right? A lot of people trade stocks online if you're a stock person. And this is just where we are as consumers today. I've done the analysis before. I still do this. You know, you can, if y'all are sitting in a group watching this, raise your hands to each other if you have Amazon Prime. And I'm not in the room with you, but I'll bet you that most of you have Amazon Prime. And the difference now is we used to go to Amazon after we'd gone to the store, and now we go to Amazon as our very first move. This is what I mean by the change in consumer behavior. And this is now playing out in the real estate business. It's going down 3 rails, guys. It's down a past client sphere of influence rail, the listing side, absent a vibrant, you're my person, going to Google. Like it or not, they're going to Google. And the buyer side is a Zillow play. Again, always absent massive past client sphere of influence play. So the game is, if you want to scale your business, is to go out and play around in the arena of the Googles and the Zillows and acquire clients, and then create such an unbelievable experience for them and such vibrant communication with those people, they never even think about going back out to the portals again. But if we don't do our job, they're going to go back out to the portals en masse. The question I have for you is, whoops, I clicked too many times. Do you have a strategy in these arenas? Because I will tell you, regardless of how long you've been doing this, if you're brand new to the industry, it's a huge opportunity for you. If you're a seasoned person, you're experienced, you've been doing this a long time, the same opportunity is there for you. But you're going to have to operate at an incredibly high level. And I'll take the Google and Zillow thing and I'll put them aside as one rail. The other rail is past clients. Now, if you do not have, if you're new to the industry or newer to the industry, and you don't have a big sphere of influence in past clients, then you need to go work the online side of this and fortify those relationships as you work with those people, then trying to transition or successfully transitioning, as I have one particular group of people have done, that within about 2 years of starting out brand new, now they're strictly just working past client and spheres. But do you have a strategy in these arenas? Because this is where we are. So I want you to do this. If you think I'm full of beans, when you get time, Google real estate agents in Springfield, Missouri, let's say. And the question is, do you know all the people? Have you even heard of the people that show up on a Google search and look like players in your industry? Because I'll tell you that across the country, when I do this, and I do this with my clients, people are like, I've never even heard of that person. What Google allows agents to do is look like a player, whether they're a player or not. And then you have to start thinking, well, where do I show up on here? Because if you don't think about, use an Amazon analogy, right? Because on Amazon, if you're buying a product that you've never purchased before, you're going to look at the reviews. And if you don't see reviews, you'll probably scroll on past the ones without a lot of reviews. This review thing is a big deal. But then where do you show up? If you have to scroll, down to 25th person or whatever before I find you, would you do that to find you in another realm? Would you do that to find an insurance agent unless you don't know an insurance agent? Would you go down 25 insurance agents? Would you go down 25 stockbrokers? This is how this is playing out today. Consumers are Googling before the transaction, and they're using it as a selection filter. And they're also Googling during the transaction when you're working with them for information. So Google in and of itself is raising the bar on all of us. Online reviews now carry equal or greater weight than personal referrals. And I've talked about this before, your referrals need to be stop traffic referrals. They need to be, don't even think about going online. I have exactly the person you need. Let me have them call you. You have to get to that level with people. And it is possible because I have a group that is doing this. Consider this on the buy side. Zillow had 255.5 million monthly visitors in 2022. The total of every major brand real estate site was 33.1 million. It's 12.9% of Zillow. So please understand that buyers, their first move is to go to Zillow. They're going there in mass. Okay? So if you want to work the buyer side of the equation, again, absent people referring you business, which that's where we're really trying to get to, you're going to have to go play in the Google in the Zillow arena. But moving forward, the marketplace is going to definitely belong to those agents who, number one, have a capacity to have great conversations with people, because it's the great conversation is what differentiates you in all of these scenarios. The more high tech we have, the more it's about my desire or my need to have a great conversation. Then we have to have the people that have the willingness to get themselves in a situation to have those conversations. And you have to have a massive past client care system in place. Please put this, I'm begging you guys, please put this in place. It's such a huge thing. Because remember, 70% of realtors get in and out of the business in 18 months. So the people that those realtors had sold a house to, maybe it's only one or two, maybe it's only three, but those clients cannot go back to those people because they've left the industry. 87% of realtors don't make it 5 years. Not anybody on here, but statistically, there's a huge churn rate in the real estate industry. If 87% of the realtors do not last 5 years, that means there's only a 13% chance, okay, that I can call back my realtor that I bought my house from. Now, people also live in their houses longer than ever before. We're on about 13 years now, national average. So there's actually been 2 cycles of realtors that have turned through. 80% of sellers only talk to one agent before they list property. And of that, 39% are the result of a referral or a previous relationship with an agent. Now, that's where our work has to be. Just statistically, this is where the marketplace is. We have a big churn rate of people. We have to, those of you that are really, really good at this, I know that's why you're on here, because we want to be good. Only way we can mess this up is if we don't stay in flow with our people, because it works off of what we've always called the business bullseye. You guys have seen this a million times, but I'm going to go through it again. You have the general public. These are the Zillow, Google people. They don't know you. They don't like you. Your value is one that's created by marketing, i.e. reviews on Google, and your response time. If you're playing in this online space, you have to answer the phone every time it rings. And on the Google side of things, if you don't do that, Google will tumble you. And we've done a session on Google a while back, and I'm sure we'll be revisiting it, or we can answer whatever questions you might have about it. Well, better than the general public, now we have our acquaintances, a very interesting group of people. They know you and like you, and given the chance, they'd use you, but given the chance, I'd use somebody else too. These are the people that you sold them a house a few years ago and you drive by and you're like, oh my gosh, somebody else has it listed. How in the world did that happen? Those were my people. And it's simply because we didn't stay in flow with them. It wasn't that you weren't good. It wasn't that they didn't like you. They just didn't remember you. Now, better than that, that's your network. Now, those people will always use you. They may or may not be referring people to you, right? They're not telling their friends to use you. Why? Mainly because we're not staying in contact with them, or they were never, certain people are just never wired to send referrals. That gets into a whole different conversation. But where we're trying to take as many people as we possibly can is we're trying to take them to the advocate level, to those people that would stop traffic for us, for those people that are constantly referring us. We have to create a scenario to try to move as many people as we can to the advocate level, acknowledging that we are not going to get everyone to the advocate level. They're not all going to go, but we want to give them every chance to. But I will say this, people should never, after I've done a transaction with you, I should never go out farther than your network ever again. Given that you want to deal with me, you found me to be nice, polite, you would like to do another transaction with me, I should never leave your network. And yet we see this happen all the time. Here's what we know. The next time you have a closing, that client is an advocate for you. In that moment, in that closing, whether they were a buyer or whether they were a seller, you've done a great job for them. And they would tell their friends that afternoon, the next day, maybe the next week, oh my gosh, this transaction that I had with my agent was unbelievable. You need to call them. I had this happen. I mention this gentleman's name quite often, but I had this happen a few months ago and over dinner. And some friends of ours said, you know, my brother's moving down and we need an agent in Springfield. And I said, Morgan Spillman. And she said, I've never heard of him. And I said, you don't need to hear of him. I said, it will be the greatest experience that your brother's ever had dealing with a real estate agent. And I firmly believe that. I mean, Morgan is one of those people. And long story short, did the transaction. And she called me and she said, you are right. This is the greatest experience he's ever had. She brought it up to me again about 3 weeks ago. She goes, next time you see him, please tell him for me, that was an unbelievable experience. Now, if he doesn't stay in contact, though, with that person, what will happen? They'll move back out and be a member of the network. Yes, Leon is the gentleman's name. Yes, Leon would probably call him back, but Leon's not out there telling his friends to call him because we are salespeople. And we always believe the relationship is deeper than in a lot of cases the client thinks that it is. So we go from being an advocate to being network over time, unless we do things to stop this from happening. And over a longer period of time, they become an acquaintance. Yeah, I remember him. Yeah, he was pretty good. Well, have you heard from him lately? No. Oh, okay. And then ultimately we go out and meet the general public again. I have this conversation with people regularly when people ask me what I do. And I say I'm in the real estate business, and normally they'll say, oh, well, we bought a house a couple of years ago. And I always go down the same trail with them, whether I'm on the golf course or just, wherever. I always do this. And I always say, oh, wow, you bought a house. Great. Did you use an agent? Oh, yeah. I said, were they good? Yeah, they were good. What was their name? Y'all would be shocked at the number of times they're like, oh, wait a minute, let me think of this. Now, I ought to know this, huh? I ought to know who that is. I said, but they were good. Oh, yeah, they were good. Would you use them again? Well, yeah, I think I would. Well, you can't because you can't remember who they are. And then I laugh, kind of chuckle and say, this is what I do. This is what I try to help people with. Guys, it's such a huge issue. And I know for some of you, I'm probably just beating a dead horse because you're already crushing this. But I'm going to show you a model in a second that I really want you to work on and find out if you're really crushing it. So differentiation is the key to everything now. As the movement is to become transactional, we have to differentiate ourselves, okay? So differentiation happens before, during, and after the transaction. The number one action item for y'all to do is embrace a CRM of some regard. And for those of you that are with Remax, you've got the KV Core Play. You either have it or you have it coming as a CRM. Guys, here's what I'm going to tell you about CRMs. KV Core is a great product. Follow Up Boss is a great product. Realty Juggler is a great product. A Rolodex is a great product if that's what you'll consistently use. People always ask me, what CRM should I use? And my answer is always the one you'll use. All right? If you're not a tech person, you're not a tech person. I know the challenge with CRM is you have to do a lot of setup on the front end and you get frustrated and then the phone rings and somebody wants to go buy or sell something and then you do it and you think in the back of your mind, I really need to get to that. We are sales. I said this to somebody this morning. We are salespeople. We do not like routine, mundane tasks. So the fact that we set up a CRM and enter data is just like our kryptonite, okay? And yet it has to be done. You've got to keep track of people in some way, okay? So how do we differentiate before the transaction? Well, it's the dialogue that we have when members of the general public call us. It's how good are we on the dialogue. I did some work yesterday with a gentleman on dialogue calling expires. It is how good your materials are. If you're out there right now and you don't have the prescribed materials, please start working on it. Okay? You've got to be able to embrace video at some level. You need a pre-listing packet, a buyer packet. Every time you create a touch point, right? Maybe you send somebody to Starbucks as every time that you have an engagement with them. If someone sends you a referral, what's your protocol when someone sends you a referral? Is it just, oh yeah, I need to probably thank them or something? Or are you sending them something? Are you using things to make sure that you're staying in front of people when you meet them? Are you differentiating yourself and having people go, wow, that is a completely different experience? And then what process do you take people through? We think we're getting referred as people, but we're not. People refer processes, they don't refer people. If I enjoy the process that you took me through, I will tell other people to use you. I don't really know you in a lot of cases, if you think about the people that you refer, you don't know a lot about them probably, but you know the process and you trust the process. And therefore, you'll hang your name on their process because it's really good. People refer processes. And then how do you follow up with people? What's your protocol for follow-up after you've had a conversation with someone? We know it's one of the biggest issues in the industry. So then during the transaction, how good's your listing presentation dialogue? It's going to have to be spot on. Again, talk about the lawsuits for a second. These lawsuits are probably going to change the way we talk about compensation to both buyers and sellers. So we need to start working on that now. What is going to happen with compensation? And I would tell you guys this. No matter how this lawsuit settles out, right? Again, between Remax and Anywhere has been 133 million paid out so far to basically get out of the lawsuit. It's going to change things. It's going to change compensation. It may not change the actual dollar amount of the compensation, but it's going to change how we talk with people about compensation. It's also going to change it on the buyer side. You've got to have expectation dialogue. What are you looking for in this transaction? What do we need to make sure that we do? How will you guarantee me as a client that you're going to communicate with me throughout the process? This is how you differentiate yourself from the other realtors that I might be talking to. And then maybe it's staging and pictures and all of those things that you're doing on the listing side. During the transaction, can you make it personal? Will you make it personal? Will you, wow, I just had a stressful conversation with you. Will you send me a massage certificate and just say, hey, look, I know that was a stressful conversation we just had about that property inspection. Go have a massage on me. Will you give people a handyman, a couple of hours with a handyman after the closing? Because there's always a little stuff that needs to be fixed. Are you giving them some kind of Home Depot gift certificate or Lowe's? Will you check in with them weekly after they make the purchase to make sure everything's going okay? Or are you afraid to make that phone call? Will you give your listings perhaps a Starbucks gift certificate? So, hey, look, you're going to have to be out of your house a lot while it's being shown. Just here, let me give you a Starbucks gift certificate or Panera or whatever, right? After someone moves into their new house, will you hire a chef and have them come in for a private dinner? Or as people are leaving their house, will you bring a chef in and say, let's have one more great meal in your house before you move on to the next house? There are people doing these things in one-offs. I'm not telling you to do them all, but you need to be thinking this way. How do I create experience for people that's not transactional? Because when we look down the road 3 or 4 years, this is what the true fabulous practitioner is going to be doing, and they're going to be the ones that are eating up market share. Every personal touch should be accompanied by a note and thanking them so much for the chance to work with them. So then after the transaction, you got to start being in flow with your people 36 times a year. Okay, that's the number. We used to say 24 to 36. I now know 36 works. 36 is what we have to do. The only thing that I will tell you about these contacts is they have to be varied, right? It's not 36 emails. It's not 36 pieces of direct mail. You have to come at your client in different ways, okay? And it has to be valuable. It has to be something of value. You know, Buffini would call it an item of value. There has to be valuable information. There have to be valuable gifts, whatever it is. It has to be varied and valuable. Again, you could do the anniversary dinner with a chef if you wanted to. And here's a big one. Y'all need to start doing, or I would say, I feel like I'm such a lecturer today. Client parties 4 times a year. And this is a point where I would tell you, if you probably don't remember, but on my slide from 2004, I said independence is now become our obstacle, right? So independence built the real estate industry. Independent franchisees, independent contractors as agents, and at some level, independence now starts to become the problem. And we need to teamify around certain issues, okay? You need to get with the people in your office and you need to teamify. And I will tell you that the place to teamify, or one of them, is on client parties. And it's just because of economies of scale and cost. But you can pull off a much nicer, much cooler event with 4 or 5 agents, or optimally an entire office, right? This past client deal, guys, is the issue that affects every person on this call. Whether y'all want to admit it or not, this is a huge driver of your business. This is the piece of business that everyone can convert because they're referred to you. You are pre-sold. We need to teamify around and make sure we start having some really nice client events for our people. This is an example, and I'm going to talk about these guys a lot for the remainder of this. This is a client of mine in Southwest Oklahoma City, specifically Yukon, Oklahoma. A lot of you heard me talk about this before, but I have pictures this time. This is their big annual event. It's called Paint and Pour. This year they had 276 people, I believe, show up for Paint and Pour. It is an office event, okay? To give you an example, 4 years ago, they had 20 people show up. But with implementing the 36 times a year touches, now we're at 276. They keep having to find bigger rooms to do this, right? This is what I mean by teamifying around an event. This is a big deal. It's about a 2.5, 3 hour event. But look at all the people that are there. How often should you focus on client systems? Well, just every day. You should be doing something every single day as it relates to past client systems. You should be writing notes to people that pop into your head, and it can be as simple as, hey, I was just thinking about you today. I hope all is well, Wayne, and send it out. Okay. Now, we can model all of these things out. We can prescribe how many touches you're perhaps going to get from notes. And we can break all of that down, right? Let's say you have 100 people in your database, and you want to make sure that you write a handwritten note to them every quarter. Well, that's 400 handwritten notes in a year. And if we just do some quick math, I got my calculator here. We got 400, and we're going to do it in a 45-week year because you tend to lose about 7 weeks or so just a year to stuff. That's 8.8, rounded up, call it 9 notes that I need to write a week. Divide that by 5 days. That's 1.7 notes. So I would say write 2 notes a day. We've got to start breaking everything down to what we do on a daily basis. The goal is not to write 10 notes a week, because what will happen is life will happen. And then you won't get the notes written on Monday, but you'll think, that's okay, I'll just write more notes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then something invariably happens, and before you know it, the whole week went by and you didn't write any notes. So any initiative that we're going to take on, we've got to break it down to a daily level. Because when you break it down to a daily level, it's not nearly as daunting, guys, as thinking, I've got to write 60 notes this month, right? That's daunting. And I think this is where the consistency of these very, very important strategic things fall in. So you just got to focus on client systems every day. You got to break it down. You already go down the time blocking route. Everybody talks about it, very few do it. That's where I ended up with 15 minutes a day, because you can write 2 notes 15 minutes a day. There's no doubt about that. You can change your life 15 minutes a day, as we've talked before. So we have 2 issues that we deal with when we talk about past clients. One is the overall size of our database. And as a general rule, experienced people in the business, their database is too large. They have too many people in their database. They're not really sure who their guys are. They're not really sure how many are just acquaintances, how many are networks. They don't really know who the advocates are, right? We say A's, B's, and C's and all of that. But in my world, in my mind, you're an A or you're out. And I lived this. So number one, I want to show you a strategy to narrow your database down if you have too many people in it. And then I want to show you some strategies to have more vibrant engagement. So here's the model. You've heard me talk about this before. If you've done the math before, you already know where you sit. If you haven't done the math, here's how it works. You take the number of people in your network, number of people in your SOI. Maybe it's the number of people in your database. I don't know. How do you want to define it? Here's the math. You take that number of people times 5. That represents that they each know 5 people in the course of a year who will buy or sell something. And you take that times 5%. 5% paid on rate. We'll acknowledge that 95% of the time, either they don't refer you, the people they were going to refer you to had a relationship with another realtor, whatever. But if you will take number of people that you believe are your guys, times 5 times 5%, that will give you a projected transaction number strictly from those people. This is not a theory. This is factual. If we're doing the protocols and we're doing the right things, it is very easy to predict how much business you will do from that group of people. I have a client doing it. I have a client doing it at a very, very high level. I'll show you the math as it relates to this. So here's how we narrow a database down. You take the number of people that you have right now, that's the potential network list. And the first thing It's not really on here. The first thing you do is you go through that list, and invariably there'll be 2 or 3 people on there. You'll see their name and you're like, oh, I remember them. Why are they even in my database? I didn't like dealing with them at all. And I want you to go ahead and just eliminate those people. Life is too short for you to be working with people that you don't like. So just get rid of the people that are in your database that are still hanging around in there that you don't like, because they probably don't like you either. Let's just be honest. But of those people that are left, we're going to have a communication that we're going to send out to them, which we're going to give you copies of. I'm going to show them to you really quickly today, but you're going to get copies of all of them, along with a client survey. And we're going to ask them to fill out this client survey and return it to us. Now, you can do this however you want to. You can do it in direct mail. You could do this in a text message with an attachment. You can do it in a fillable PDF. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of what's the best way to do it. The best way to do it is the way you'll do it. But we're going to send a communication with a client survey out, all right? Then we're going to, a certain percentage of those people will reply to us. We're going to thank them for replying and let them know who won the drawing that's referred to in the letter. Then we're going to send out another communication to those people who didn't reply. We're going to have the same game again. And after 2 rounds of letters or communications, if it's letter, fine, if it's email, whatever, you'll know who your true network is. Here's exactly what the letter would look like. It's always been my goal to provide my friends with the best service and support. To do this, we've upgraded our computer software. Well, I know that if specifically if you're on here and you're a RE/MAX agent, you have KV Core. So you could insert, we have just, upgraded to KV Core. Attached is a form to update and expand the information we currently have about you in our database. Basically, please take some time, fill this out, and we'll enter into a drawing. Maybe it's $100. I got another letter, it says $50. But I'm going to have a drawing if you'll play the game with me, okay? And you're going to send them this client survey in some fashion and ask them to fill it out. Guys, this client survey should be a part of everything you do moving forward for the rest of your career. There's no reason moving forward for you to have a smattering of information on some people. This is the vibrant information that we need to further those past client systems, all right? Now, I'll tell you briefly my particular story on this. I had 1,450 people in my database, and this made sense to me to figure out who my guys were. Okay, it's Pareto's Law, the 80-20 principle. You have your 20% people that are drivers for your business, and then you have all the rest of the people. You need to know who your 20% people are. You need to create a scenario for them to become 20% people. I created this communications, and I sent this out with client surveys. I did 2 rounds of letters, exactly like what I'm telling you. When the dust cleared, my database went from 1,450 people down to 356 people, okay? But I burrowed in with the 356 people who had raised their hand and said they knew me, they liked me, and wanted to deal with me. I had some people who wrote across it, I wouldn't recommend you to anybody, and I simply deleted them. I had 3 or 4 times when there had been a divorce, and the new wife crossed out the ex-wife's name, and here I'd been mailing to the husband and the ex-wife the whole time, but they crossed out the ex-wife's name and wrote their name in, so I'm the new spouse. That was kind of awkward, but they sent the survey back, so now we had better information. I'm going to challenge you to do this. After you get those back, thanks so much for responding to the survey and sending in the information. The winner of the gift certificates were X. Please congratulate them, because there will be some crossover within your database. I'm sorry you weren't a winner, but again, thanks for your response, and I'll be in touch, because now that they've replied, now we're enrolling them in this vibrant past client system. We're going to invite them to the events. We're going to be writing them notes and things like that. Then we're going to send a second letter out to people. The offer is still available. You didn't reply to the first one, but try again. If you're interested, take a few minutes and complete the survey. I'm going to have another drawing. Then they're going to get the same, hey, thanks for replying. And after that, we're going to know who the people are, because here's the bottom line. Easiest business model ever created. Be really good at what you do. And I know that you're good because you're on these calls. Be really nice to everybody and stay in touch. If you're really good at what you do, you're really nice to everyone, and you stay in touch with people, your business will scale. It has to, because you're taking people through a really great process. That's why you're good. You're a pleasant person to be around. And I don't forget you. And there's value in being in a business relationship with you because you do cool stuff for me all the time. Now, if we take any of these three things out of the equation, your business starts to go up and down. Take two things out of the equation, it doesn't matter which two it is. Take two things out of the equation, you'll never get a lot of speed in your business. And this is what we know happens, right? You can be really good at what you do and be really nice to people, but if you don't stay in touch, you're still not able to keep them as clients. Now, you can be really good and stay in touch with people, but if you're not nice to people, they will not refer their friends to you. And I don't need to go down all the different routes, but you see what I'm saying, right? In order to have a sustainable, scalable business, you have to have all three of these things. And we get it intellectually, but we don't get it behaviorally. I hear it from people all the time. I need to be better with past clients. I need to be better with past clients. Well, if you'll do this math, it'll tell you how much better you need to be with past clients. If you've got 100 people, times 5 is 500. Times 5%, 25 transactions. You should do 25 transactions for every 100 people you have in your database. Now, if you're not doing 25 transactions per 100, here's all we know. Either A, those 100 people don't like you, don't know you, and don't want to deal with you again. So you have to go look, well, am I good at what I do? Yeah, I'm good. I'm nice to everybody. It must be that I'm just not staying in touch. We can conversely do backwards math and say, okay, I did 10 transactions last year by referral. Take that times 5%, right? And times 5. In other words, do the math backwards, and you're going to end up, well, I've only got, X number of people. And that's the reality of it, because the model was a model for a long time. It's no longer a model. Here's a case study. This is Remax Energy, Yukon, Oklahoma. I talk about these cats all the time, but it's just so much fun. They are really onto something really, really cool. There's the model, 36 touches a year, right? The number in the network times 5 times 5%, just what I just showed you, the target number of closed transactions. Well, here's what has happened over the last few years. 2020, when we implemented this program at a high level, the referrals for the 8 agents that were there the entire time went from 107 to 172, a 60% increase. Went up another 15% from 2021 to 2022. Went from 107 deals by referral to 199 deals by referral for 8 agents. That's an average of 24 transactions a person. About that. By referral. Well, here's what happened in 2022, right? Here was exactly the way it worked. There were 975 people in the network. Times 5 would be 4,875 possible. Times 5% is 243 projected transactions. Well, how many did they really do? Well, they did 230. They operated at a 94.7% efficiency in this model as a group of people because they have the protocols in place. The top agent in 2022 operated at 137% efficiency in the model. He did 41 transactions strictly by repeat and referral off of an SOI of 120 people. He knocked it out of the park. So how about 2022 versus this year? Because, oh my gosh, the marketplace is down. What are we going to do? Well, in 2022, they had closed through July 219 transactions. Of that, 140 or 64% were by referral. But what about 2023? Through July of 2023, they had closed 213 transactions. They're down 2.8%. But the number of transactions by referral actually went up to 143. This is in a marketplace that's off 15%. You need to do your own numbers that way, guys. This is a huge deal. It is, well, I've stated it so many times, I'm not going to state it anymore. So how do we do it? How do they do it, I should say? It's driven massively by 4 client events a year. Now, they teamify around these events. They do them together, right? There's a touch that goes around every event. There's 6 touches per event. And then they have a monthly postcard campaign that goes out to all of their people. They're not even writing handwritten notes like I talked earlier. The key to this is you've got to get in front of your people 36 times a year. Now, I know I'm going to head this question off before we get, because this is always a question that comes up when I talk about this. 36 times sounds like a lot. I don't want to be creepy with my people contacting them that much. Please understand that if you run the protocols that we're laying out here today, you're not going to be creepy, and here's why. I raised my hand and said, I knew you, I liked you, and I wanted to deal with you. And by the way, when you contact me, it's really cool stuff that you're sending me. So don't worry about being creepy, okay? Don't worry about contacting people too much. As long as you're bringing value to their lives, you don't have to worry about it. Be one of your people. These are people that have raised their hand to you. We've got to get it up to 36 times a year. Other things that I think you need to do. I think everyone needs to subscribe to Keeping Current Matters, Steve Harney's fabulous organization, because you're going to need, through some of these communications, you're going to need to be sending them market data that they're not receiving from other places, okay? So as an office, maybe some of you guys go together if your office isn't already subscribing to Keeping Current Matters. And you're not going to use all the info. You have to glean through it. But as a group, you could teamify around this as well and just get a subscription to Keeping Current Matters. You need to create a closed Facebook group for your people, all right? And upgrade your SOI contacts to 36 times. I'll show you copies of or samples of a couple of closed Facebooks. Now, what about, it's like, well, Wayne, that's great. You just told me how to narrow my database down. I don't have that big of a database. That's cool. No problem. Let's leverage Facebook. So look in there and see how many friends you have in Facebook, right? Those are all potentials to become referral sources for you. So identify the Facebook friends that you have that are not already in your SOI. If you're brand new to the industry, this is your first move, okay? That we're going to reach out to those people that are on Facebook. Here's what we're going to ask them. I was wondering if you have a realtor that you use or refer business to. If not, would you consider using me? I just got in the real estate business. If they answer in the affirmative, then turn around and send them this. And we would do this through direct messages on Facebook. Great. Could you please send me your email address and home address? I've got some great events coming up, again, because we've teamified as an organization around this or with some of your friends. And I want to make sure you get invited as well. So now all of a sudden there's a value, passive value in being in business with you or being in relationship with you. You can do the exact same thing via text message with all the contacts on your phone. So you have things, as I said earlier, you have this bulletproof thing at your fingertips. But life happens, and life's going to happen here in a few minutes when we get off this call. And the phone's going to ring, and it's going to be some other random person who wants to go look at a house today or whatever. You've got to block out the time to take care of this, guys. This is what creates a scalable business. If they give you that information, now they raise their hand to you twice. It's like, yeah, I would consider using you. Yeah, here's my information. You get them into the process. Your goal, our goals, are to become the hub of the wheel for all their real estate information. And we're going to do that in a myriad of ways. We're going to do that by inviting them to events. We're going to do that by contacting them with notes and direct mail, perhaps, and things like that. But we're also going to use this closed Facebook group to be the deal. Now, this is a guy named Ryan Lerma. He is at Remax Energy in Yukon. I use him as an example all the time. He is the gentleman that in 2022 outperformed the model. He is the one that did 41 transactions from 120 people, all by referral. He has created a closed Facebook group called Lerma's Click, and this is where he engages with people. Every time he sells a house to someone, he puts them into the group. Join me in welcoming our newest members, Wes and Meriden DeWitt, to the clique. I recently helped them, tells a little story about them. They have 2 daughters, a new puppy, whatever, and you'll see people saying, welcome, welcome. And then here's the interesting thing that starts to happen in these groups. Your clients start using this group as a way to get recommendations on other things. So back in November, Cody Bruce said, does anybody have recommendations for someone to help you with Christmas lights? And then bam, here came people saying, well, here's the person I use, here's the person I use. And of course, Ryan jumps in and says, I got a couple of names for you. And so all of a sudden it's like, hey, something about my house that I don't know what to do. Hang on, I'll go to that Facebook group. This is massive. In fact, it's so massive. I got this from Lerma earlier in the year. I think this was in July. If you're a RE/MAX agent, you'll know what these club levels mean. Hi, I hit Platinum Club yesterday. 6 months left. I'm going for chairman now. Headed to McAllister for closing number 36. I closed number 37, 38, and 39 this Friday. I've got 16 pending. And he is 100% repeat and referral, guys. But he's put the protocols in place. Hey, as a group, as an office, they brought an ice cream truck into their parking lot a few weeks ago. They had 175 people show up over a 2-hour period for ice cream, and Lerma sent out the coolest deal thanking his people. He sent out a video to all of his people. He found some way that he could put like his face on an ice cream cone, so it was an ice cream cone talking to you and thanking you for coming to the event. I wish I had it. I would have dropped it in here. But he's 100% repeat and referral. And everybody says working by referral is just so much simpler, right? Well, here's another guy. This is Tyler Clark. He's got Clark's Crew. Now, he's only 2.5 years in the business, but I talked to his broker yesterday. I think he said Tyler's got 10 under contract right now. He's 22 or 23 years old. But he's got a closed Facebook group. He started out acquiring leads via Zillow and the various portals. Now he works by referral, the vast majority of his business. He'll be transitioning over to strictly referral because they have a protocol in place. Here's another one of my clients, Tony Isa. Tony is in Angola, Indiana. He started a closed Facebook group for his people called the Isa Connection. This is how he engages with his group. Every Monday he does a giveaway, right? So this is a few weeks ago, right, in March. Monday giveaway, comment on your favorite drink below and be entered to win a $10 gift card. So that's his way of engaging with all of his people on a regular basis. He actually, too, did a client party at an ice rink, and he gave away a lot of prizes, and he had all the pictures taken with him, and his business is very, very stable. I just talked to Tony a couple of weeks ago. So, guys, this is a huge deal. The industry won't do it. That's why I believe that the Zillows of the world and all these online portals that continue to, if you read about them, they continue to lose money. I think it's why they continue to lose money is they're playing the long game. They're knowing that at some point this will turn and become transactional. This lawsuit is a huge deal, I think, for them because it perhaps will make people look at this more transactionally. And I know that's not where you want to be. I know that real estate success comes from the relational side, but I do know this as well. Disruption always creates opportunity as long as you think strategically. So I've tried to give you a broad brush concept today. This is not a real estate issue. This is a small business issue. It has happened to other industries before. They are farther down the road. Go look and see how they navigated this. There are no more stockbrokers. There are now certified financial planners. All of us would still use a travel agent on a big, like, European trip. You're not going to try to book it yourself through a portal, right? Insurance people need to do exactly the same thing, but quite honestly, they're not really. And then they wonder why people go to a Geico or Progressive. So I just wanted to really drive this point home to you. This is where we are. I wrote about it in 2004. It took longer than I thought to get here, but it seems to me, I have the sense that it's starting to really ramp up on us right now. So as a result of all this, here's the next huge topic, and we're going to start talking about it again. We're going to talk about presenting value to a buyer client. I want us to be prepared regardless of what happens with this lawsuit. NAR may prevail, but I think it'll still change the way people look at the process. It's kind of under the radar right now. Not a lot of people are talking about it. People in the public are not talking about it. A lot of realtors don't even know about it, which is sad to me. But we're going to talk presenting your value to a buyer client in our next session. We're going to go back through that again and really start talking about some of those protocols. So I know I ran a little bit over today. Thank you all very much for your time. There's how you get a hold of Maddie. There's how you get a hold of me. And with that, guys, I will open it up to whatever questions you may have about the inner workings of past client systems as we talked about them today, or any questions about anything. And we'll open it up for questions.
As always, you're welcome to use the chat function to submit your question or the Q&A, or you can raise your hand and ask your question to Wayne yourself. We did have a Q&A come through from Sue saying she had a great idea for a client party. You could rent out a movie theater that's showing the upcoming Taylor Swift concert that starts on October 19th, and you would get a lot of people to show up. I think it's a great idea. I would come.
You, as a closet Swiftie, you would think that. Yes, I would. That would be great. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Guys, I'll leave you with this. This is an issue we need to teamify around, or y'all need to teamify around. Real estate sales is an individual sport. We know that. But there's times when we need to get together and we need to get on the same page for the good of all. Past client systems is definitely that page. So with that, I will leave it with you. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you. There's our contact information. I mean, don't be a stranger. Some of you realize you can call us, you can email us. We'll try to help you any way we can. Thank you so much for your time. See you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.